Coming to you from the Forge of Freedom studio in the heart of America. A podcast dedicated to preserving freedom and inspiring personal success. Freedom is born and lives through you, the individual, and it dies in the shadows of tyranny. Motivating our listeners to become well-rounded, freedom-minded people with the body of an athlete, the mind of a stoic, and the spirit of a warrior. The tree of liberty lives on through you, the Forge of Freedom. And now here's your host, Alex Uli.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Forge of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uli, and this is episode 89 of the Forge of Freedom. Today, I'm excited to have Jonathan and Adriana Prescott back on the podcast to talk about a subject that I care deeply about. That's the topic of education, homeschooling, and entrepreneurship. And for those who may not have seen the previous episode that I recorded with Jonathan and Adriana, we recorded episode 54 together a little bit ago about their book, Kids Don't Need School, a radical new homeschool plan to teach anything, promote independent learning, and prepare children for an uncertain future. I will, of course, link to that episode in the show notes if you haven't seen that already and want to go back and listen to that discussion, and would, of course, encourage you to go check out their book as well, which I'll link to in the show notes as well. Jonathan and Adriana Prescott are trained engineers, serial entrepreneurs, and devoted parents. Their book shares their approach to home-based education, prioritizing the parent-child bond, age-appropriate academic study, and pursuit of mastery instead of grades. Their private online homeschoolers community, Homeschool Life, puts their principles into practice, resulting in self-taught children who are years ahead of their traditionally schooled peers. Jonathan and Adriana have been married for over 2 decades, having one child who they currently homeschool and have homeschooled her entire life, and they call Kennewick, Washington, their home. And today we're going to take the conversation a step further and talk about the entrepreneurial aspect of homeschooling. I think you'll enjoy the discussion, so stick with us. And without further ado, Jonathan, Adriana, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah. So I gave a pretty lengthy introduction there, but with that being said, before we get into the meat of the topic, sort of this connection between homeschooling and entrepreneurship, would you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourselves and why you got into homeschooling and why you care so much about this connection between homeschooling and entrepreneurship?
Sure. Just to begin with, homeschooling and entrepreneurship are cousins. In fact, a lot of our clients, when they had to start homeschooling, like one parent would, gave up a job or a career to homeschool their child. Well, what's interesting is children are quite creative when they're given the freedom to be creative. And so what happens is you start doing a homeschooling project and it's like, well, let's make this. And then the kids say, well, why can't we sell this? And so children are generally, just little entrepreneurs in their mindset, without the school like beating it out of them.
Yep. And sometimes is when one parent stays at home, sometimes that parent finds a way to make a living, and that becomes a family business that the children get to plug themselves into as well.
So go ahead.
Oh, well, in fact, your daughter has her own business, right? We talked a little bit about it last time. I think she has her own website. She sells some of her own products. Would you mind to say a little bit about that?
Sure. What it's called is Extracts by Annabelle. And this is her vanilla extract. It's probably backwards, but we developed this because she loves to bake. And so she was out of vanilla and she goes, Dad, why can't we make some vanilla? I says, well, why don't we try? So we
did some research and development.
We did some research.
Experiments, of every kind.
And what it turned into is we looked at different beans and different supply chains. And all throughout this, I'm teaching Annabelle the basics of establishing suppliers and R&D and everything else like this. We tried different vodkas and stuff. Well, Annabelle didn't, but we had to, and because it had to steep for a while, it took a long time and some patience in order to get it to where it's an actual product. And then we talked about labeling and marketing, and then where should we sell this? And that brought us over to a farmer's market.
Yes.
And so we just finished up our second year on the farmer's market. We supply our vanilla extracts to local bakers around the area, and we're about to get our products into the grocery stores. So this has trained her, because I basically show her how to do all this stuff. It trains her to know this intuitively. And so that was her path on that. We know of other clients and friends of Homeschool Life. What's that one kid?
Yeah, when we were at a book signing, we had a mother and child show up, and this boy, he had a cottage permit. He was selling baked goods in the local area, and in addition to that, he had published his own book. So,
one of the youngest publishers that was picked up by this publishing house.
Yeah, so easily when kids get creative, the next thing that they question is, why don't we make money out of this? So it becomes a natural entrepreneurial, transition, and then a family business, because then we're all helping with our child's idea to come into fruition. We want it to succeed. So,
but there's plenty of more success stories we have of people who are homeschooling or have homeschooled, who have businesses that they've transitioned from the 9-to-5 to full entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and we know many homeschooling families who have found a way to make a living with something that they created. One of them, like a lady, she started a cottage. She got a cottage permit and started baking. And now she bakes, but guess what? Her kids have become apprentices of her baking. So she's teaching them how to do her business as well. And so it expands their horizons to where they can think, hey, I can do this too. I can take this family business, or I can create my own. It allows them that learning experience that kids going to school would never have.
Yeah. Well, I love this because your book is, of course, a great resource for folks who, are getting started with homeschooling, may already be homeschooling, and are uncertain about where to go or what to do. But you've lived this, and you can give people the advice through your book and through your website, which I'll mention here at the outset as well. Try to remember to mention it again at the end, homeschoollife.us. And of course, you're active on Twitter or X at Homeschool LLC. So I want to really encourage people to go back and check out the book, Kids Don't Need School, and the episode that we did about that. But also check out the other stuff that they've got going on at Homeschool Life, because it's not just about, homeschooling per se, but about all the opportunities that are available to people because of homeschooling, including this sort of entrepreneurial opportunities. And again, you talked about Extracts by Annabelle. That's extractsbyannabelle.com. So I'll link to that in the show notes as well. The other thing you mentioned, and I just want to touch on this, is this sort of creativity and this entrepreneurial spirit that children have just sort of naturally. And you said, Jonathan, if the schools don't stomp it out of them. And I think this is a good place to start, is to think about, what is the goal of the government school system, right? And you talk about this in your book, and we talked about it a little bit in the last podcast. But it's to produce. It was based on the Prussian system, to produce good soldiers, to produce good workers, to produce good employees, basically servants. And I don't think for most people that's what they want in life. And so I think it's important for people to start at the end. What's their goal in life? really. And for lots of people, it's freedom, it's autonomy, it's this sense of agency that they have control over their life. It's not to go to school, get a job, toil away for years, and then hopefully someday retire and have some freedom. That's the general model that people follow. And so how does entrepreneurship help people create the life that they want? And how does that, as you say, how is that a cousin to the homeschool life?
Do you want to talk about we had a way to introduce that, and this is to remind people, because when things are going well and people are comfortable, freedom is not something they think about, right? Because everyone's comfortable. Freedom is a subject that comes when you're suffering, when you're struggling. So without further ado, we want to talk about what happened. What is the status quo? What and what caused it, and we'll talk about the pandemic, right? That was the first thing that happened.
Right. And that was really a wake-up call for a lot of parents. Is when the schools closed, the children came home, and one of the things that we kept hearing is that my kid is moping around, my kid is lonely, it's almost like they have PTSD, and it concerned them, and they finally realized that there's something wrong with the system, but they couldn't put their finger on it. Mm-hmm. And so that's when people started to question, what is actually going on with the school system. They're not learning, because some of them tried to actually a lot of them tried to their hand on homeschooling, and realized that they're not even at the level that they should be. And I didn't know. This was like testimonials from a lot of parents back in 2020. And so they, a lot of them reached out to us because we were actually active pre-pandemic, helping people transition into homeschooling. And that was after a couple of years of just, doing it on Facebook with our local homeschooling community. But but a lot of people were like, I don't know what to do, and so a lot of the advice we gave at the time is, let them decompress. Let them, because they've been having people tell them what to do all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's the education aspect alone.
Yes.
Okay, because when kids came home, parents also came home from their workplaces, because we had to go through quarantine. So they had families at home, basically adults and children, until they figured out that adults could work. Some of them could work remotely, right? But there was an issue with resources, right? People were panicking about shortages of food or manipulation of food supply. Threat of unemployment, obviously, if you didn't go through what they wanted you to do, right? Because some people didn't want to take the medicine. Take the medicine. And so they were threatened to lose their livelihood. And threats to small businesses. A lot of small businesses suffered due to the quarantines. People not being able to shop at their business.
Some reports of, you're only allowed to purchase essential items. Mm-hmm. And one of the essential items that they said that is not essential items was seeds. They're not allowed to buy like vegetable seeds. That's very unusual. That's a level of control that is pretty amazing and
yeah.
But,
and there was this, not just essential items, right? But they decided who was an essential worker, right?
Right.
And so, people, I think, realized that their job security was an illusion, and their food security was a bit of an illusion, right? And mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people not only became skeptical of what was going on in the schools, but skeptical of maybe the lifestyle that they had designed, and were sort of trying to re-examine what they should do going forward.
So it basically revealed all these things, that infrastructure is not reliable anymore.
And even professionals were targeted. I mean, we had lawyers who were afraid to speak out on something that was clearly, unconstitutional and illegal. And then we had doctors who were threatened to lose their licenses for just doing basic, science,
doing their job,
and and a lot of pressure everywhere, top-down pressure, and it's that transition into that type of tyranny woke a lot of people up.
Yes.
And I was talking to a doctor friend of mine, and I said, what they did to you as far as taking away your credibility as a doctor, because now the general public does not really trust doctors anymore. They may go to them for like a broken arm or something like this, but as far as general care, a lot of people are just like, I am not going.
Are very skeptical, right?
Yes.
And part of the point that we're driving at here, right, is that if you're a worker, if you're an employee, you're beholden to somebody, either your boss, the corporation, or in extreme circumstances, the government. When the government shuts down, your job because they don't think it's essential, right? So it's about this entrepreneurial spirit. And this push for entrepreneurship is about taking control over your own life, right? And so tell us a little bit, what is an entrepreneur? What is entrepreneurship? And how do you incorporate that? How do you relate that to homeschooling?
You want to talk about that, or do you want me to?
An entrepreneur is someone who starts or take on a business, right? That's their livelihood. But with all the risks that it comes with it, because being an entrepreneur, you're putting there's a lot of risk. It's not something easy as being employed by somebody. But it gives you a lot of freedom, but a lot of challenges as well. And the segue to that is, which I kind of want to go towards the end, but I can mention that the homeschool would facilitate that, because like we were saying, we want families to be able to disconnect from that infrastructure that's unreliable, because they need to survive with another way. And this is what entrepreneurship would allow them to do, is if they are able to sell a product, a service, or even an idea, they can make a living.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is important here too to think about is, part of this, I think, is trying to break free from this employment mindset, right?
Yes.
That why do we go to school? Well, I go to school and get good grades because I want to get a good job. Okay, well, why do I want a job? Well, because I want to make money. Okay, well, that's not the goal in life, to make money, right? The goal in life is different for different people, but for some people it's to serve God. For some people it's to raise a family and have a cohesive family structure, and for others it's to have freedom. Sometimes it's all of those things. Lots of times it's all of those things, right? So people need to think about what's their goal in life and what's the best way to get there. And it's not to get a job, right? For most people, It's not just to get a job.
No, it's about being independent, right? What does that mean, independent? That means that you have to grow your own food, maybe, right? Grow or raise your own food. For a lot of people during the pandemic, they started
gardens,
and a lot of them actually started having chickens, because there was an egg issue. We couldn't get eggs.
That's right. I remember that.
A lot of people said, "Well, I'm getting my own chickens," and so that's how it starts. You're independent. So where the stores can't bring the goods, you have another way to survive.
And the thing is we're not trained in public school or even in private school this entrepreneurship mentality of I can make something, or I can provide a service, and people will pay me. The aspects of that is not something that the public school wants to have, because like we say talk about in our book, it's the Prussian model to have people who won't question standing in front of Napoleon's cannons, which was the problem that all started the construction of the Prussian model of education that was adopted by Dewey and others in early in the American history of education. And of course, this is well established fact of the history of education in this country, and all through it, the philosophy of getting children to do what you say is basically a robbing of agency. An agency is the self-control over your own life. Okay, the ability to have to choose your path. And when you mentioned about people want to have their goals in life and everything else like this, but public school is designed by its inception to take that away, because you serve the state, and that's the real meaning of the public school system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, so to include that into independence, because if you say we're not going to do what the public school system does in our homeschool, our independence means we're going to learn what we need to learn for life, right? We want to learn if being aware of what's going on around you allows us to say we need to learn these certain skills, the certain knowledge that we need, so because that is applicable to what we're living right now. And so skills like growing your own food, gardening, those are things that are easily implemented in a homeschool environment, because kids want to learn that kind of stuff anyway. It's interesting. They want to learn medicine, how to take care of yourself,
How to take care of their cat.
right? We've lost that ability, to take care of ourselves. So many people rush into the hospital for symptoms of a common cold. And so it's kind of like, how do we lose that ability to take care of ourselves? And so we could become too reliant on hospitals and emergency rooms, and don't have that kind of independence to take care of ourselves.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. My wife is a physician assistant, and she works at an urgent care, and it bothers her to no end that the majority of her patients come in for something like the common cold, for which there's nothing she can do, but they want some relief because they want somebody to fix them. And rather than, improve their health, maybe exercise more, maybe eat a better diet, and everybody's going to get a cold, but they're looking for somebody else to fix them. And this sort of goes hand in hand with this breaking out of this employment mindset of relying on other people to provide you with a living, to fix your problems. And I want to get back to this point too about creativity, and we've alluded to it a few times. And I want to mention this study that we talked a little bit about before we hit the record button on this episode. I'm getting this from Tuttle Twins. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Tuttle Twins, it's a series of children's books about basically the principles of freedom and economics and liberty. And they have a lot of homeschooling resources as well.
Yes.
And
highly recommended.
And one of the creators wrote the foreword for your book, which is an excellent foreword, by the way. But the study was a study on creative genius that NASA conducted several years ago. And the focus of the research was to evaluate divergent thinking, which is the ability to generate multiple solutions to a problem, or a capacity to think outside the box. And this study was administered to 1,600 4- and 5-year-olds. Of the 1,600, 98% scored at the creative genius level. 5 years later, the test was administered again to the same group of children. This time, only 30% scored at the same level. And 5 years later, once again, the children, now in their mid-teens, were administered the test, and only 12% scored at the creative genius level. And that's just astonishing. And I'll try to share this in the show notes as well, but this is the newsletter from October 25th, 2023 from the Tuttle Twins. But the point of this, right, is that school, like we've been talking about, the traditional school system does not prepare children for real life. It teaches them to fall in line. It teaches them to follow orders. It teaches them to regurgitate information. And then once they get out, they have to figure life out. And life isn't about regurgitating answers. It's not about, just falling in line. People won't pay for you to regurgitate answers, but they will pay for you to provide a service, to create for a product that you create, like a vanilla extract, right? They will pay for things that are valuable. And it takes a lot of this creative genius to figure out what people will pay for, what people find valuable. And so I want to sort of tie this back to the homeschooling, because I think, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about this, homeschooling provides an environment where children can explore these possibilities about things where they might be able to provide value and find purpose. And it takes some trial and error, and people aren't always successful the first time, right? So can you talk a little bit about that sort of creative process and trial
Sure.
and error, and why that sort of, how to foster that creativity?
Well, one thing for certain is you cannot replicate public school at home.
Exactly.
Okay, because then you're doing the same model that is stealing and sucking the life force of creative life force out of your children. And that also goes along with, don't be a micromanager of the homeschooling environment. You have to, like Maria Montessori taught about over 100 years ago, about following the child and preparing the environment. These are elements that we talk about in our book on how to foster that creativity. And yeah, of course, you're going to do math and English and history and all these other things.
But there's more creative ways to go about it, not just the one approach that the school system provides.
Yes,
and kids don't take to that approach,
and not with endless worksheets.
Exactly.
And the study that you cite, right? When the brain connections are being made, this whole thing is about divergent thinking and about creativity. Now, if you have just multiple choice where these are the only answers, then you're forcing the box to get smaller and smaller. And so that's, if you have year and year after, doing these trainings in public school system of multiple choice, and this is the only answer, and show your work. You're not going to get a grade unless you show your work. Those type of things are narrowing what the right answer is. And there goes your creative and divergent thinking.
Yeah, and it's sort of more like this fixed pie fallacy. Like this is the range of possible options. You're limiting the playing field, so to speak. Whereas by saying this is the information and these are the available answers, right? With homeschooling, you can create an environment where there are endless possibilities, right? The world is your oyster, so to speak, and you don't want to limit that creative genius, that creative environment.
Yeah, so really what you want to do when the kids are little, they're not thinking about monetizing anything. It's all playing pretty much. But learning is playing and playing is learning at that stage. So you set your home in such a way where they have manipulatives and things that they can test over and over again. There's a lot of learning materials out there right now, Montessori and others, that it's all about kids putting their hands on things, because that's how they learn at that stage. So the reason you want to do that is to get that creativity to come out as much as possible. And you want the kids to always be creative. So they have to be experimenting, taking some risks, making some mistakes. And so you have to let them do their own thing so they can continue to be creative. As they get older, teenage years, and it can be earlier for some kids, so it depends. they will start to think about how to monetize things because they realize they want to buy things for themselves too. So now money becomes important. So that's where they start to say, hey, how can I make money? What skills or talent or what can I do to make money? Yeah. And sometimes it works naturally out of an experiment, like it happened to us with the extract. She immediately said, well, why don't we sell this? It's really good. It's like, well, why not? Right?
There's this sort of, I don't know, stereotype, I guess is the best way to put it, that I got this primarily from law school, but I think it's applicable to any level of schooling, whether that's high school or undergraduate or some postgraduate degree, that a lot of times the students who get A's think, oh, if I get A's, I'm setting myself up for success, right? But then you find out, oh, I graduated as a valedictorian, I got all A's, what have you. But it doesn't matter. You get into real life and if you've lost that creative ability, your only option is to get a job. Right. And so a lot of times it's the person who gets the D's and the C's who ends up being the business owner, being the entrepreneur, being the person who, is more successful in terms of having control over their own life. And money is not the end all be all, but it is a tool to help give you freedom. And I know lots of people who fall into that category of, I got great grade. They were great at school. They got great grades. And then they were sort of left wondering, what am I going to do besides get a job? And so let's talk a little bit, I think, about sort of strategies that people can take with homeschooling to help build that entrepreneurial mindset. You mind to talk a little bit about that? We talked a little bit about, how do you incorporate an allowance? How do you, help your child start a business? You mind to talk about some of those things and maybe a few other strategies?
Yeah, I mean, for people to want to sell something, whatever it is, a product, a service, an idea, they have to first master that something, right? They have to come up with a really good product, come up with a really good idea, or if they're knowledgeable at something, they can teach others. That's like a service, to teach others and whatnot. You have to become good at it. So that being said,
and at least good enough to sell something.
Exactly. So that being said, you want to give the kids within their homeschool freedom to see what makes them tick, what makes them really interested in. For our daughter, it was baking, because part of the homeschool should be not just back up a little bit. Based on the homeschool laws in some states, you have to teach them the subjects, right? So, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. You can teach them life skills. You can teach them anything you think would benefit your child. So in our case, for our child, it was baking. She loved to bake. So I let her bake. I let her learn all about baking. And in reality, right now, she's so good that if she wanted to, she could get a cottage permit and sell her goods if she wanted to.
Right. Okay. And that's on top of the vanilla extract,
right?
And also her drawings.
And so, I was going to bring the drawings.
But the outlet for us for this particular thing was, of course, to file for an LLC and to get the regular permits and everything else from the state. It's like, since alcohol is used in extracts, we had to get a special alcohol license, alcohol permit, because we don't sell alcohol, but we use it in the manufacturing process. So it was a special license so that we can take the tax off of the spirits that we do purchase. Mm-hmm. And because of that, of course, I showed Annabelle what that whole process is. And every time you expose a child to whatever process it is, even if they look bored, it's still an exposure to that process. Mm-hmm. And the farmers market is incredibly good for looking at what people start up.
Yes.
and
Exactly.
what they're and maybe some of them are struggling with. Some of them are completely independent now. Some of them have
Mhm.
side jobs. Um,
Yeah, the farmers market is a good intro for the whole family, really, for parents and children. You know, it's a good way to meet your local community and what they
and
provide already.
start to network.
That they provide already, and also what you might be interested in providing. It's a good place to start, because a lot of families and homeschoolers do that.
I like this point because not only is it a good way to network with the community, but you can go and see what other people are providing and where you might be able to add value, where you might be able to
Mhm.
be a positive contribution to the community, right? And then you can sort of think and through trial and error, sort of work your way into that community and provide value.
Absolutely. There's so much. There's craft events also for people who do crafting and anything, glass, metal, whatever you call it. Um, Art events as well. I mean,
Renaissance
get
fairs.
plugged into your community. They actually host art events where they want local artists to come and show off their artwork, and they're so supportive. So even our child, one of the things that we just let her go free with is drawing. She likes to draw, and she's gotten really good. She taught herself how to draw through books. She didn't even go to an art class. She just taught herself. She learned. She practiced a lot, and she's now at a stage where she's comfortable selling her artwork, and so she can go to these events and sell her artwork. So it's like I said, you really have to plug into your community and see what's there locally to you.
Another homeschooling family at the farmers market, they sell homemade lotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another, and they're actually pretty darn good.
Yeah, you actually know what's in the ingredients, and they're all on the mindset of healthier, higher quality. Yes, you're paying more, but it's because they're using better ingredients, right?
Yep.
So,
Another group was started their business, the family business of pork rinds,
yeah.
and they started like almost 20 years ago, selling pork rinds. Now they have their family and extended family having multiple tents out at events
Different, yeah. Mm-hmm.
all year round.
And so, soap making, candle making, you name it. You can sell all these things that we need, right?
Right. And so our daughter, she gets excited going to the farmers market every season, and she'll start networking with other vendors and trading things and buying things
And she made connections with bakers.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why we got our product in one of the local bakeries in the area is by just getting and befriending one of the bakers there. So the thing is it's really open in that way. I mean, of course, there's other things that a family can do if they want to break free from those type of things.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is like, if you have not necessarily a product, but say a kid is really good at coding, likes computer coding, he can develop websites for people, for other businesses, or he could develop apps for people to use on their phone. So it's you just have to let them experiment.
I love this conversation because I think there's a lot underlying this conversation. You talk a lot about in your book about homeschooling, not just because it allows your child to sort of flourish and develop their natural tendencies, but because it's important to the family, right? That if you send your kid off to school every day, they spend thousands of hours each year in the school, being indoctrinated in lots of circumstances, being taken away from the family environment. And by bringing your child back home, you are building that familial bond. But through this entrepreneurship, you're not only building that familial bond, especially if it's a family business, but you're also building that bond with your community, which I think,
Yes.
which is I think incredibly important and overlooked in terms of building a better world, right? To build a better world, that doesn't happen. This is part of the theme of this podcast, is that the government can't build a better world. You can't build a better world from the top down. It has to come from the bottom up. And that starts with the individual, with the family, and then next in line would be the community. So I think that homeschooling helps create that environment, not only to raise your child in the way that's most effective, but to build the family, and as a byproduct, to build the community. So
Right.
I love this
And we
from a
have a
higher level
preference,
perspective.
and we have a preference to do business with homeschoolers.
Yes.
We have a preference, and I encourage anyone who's homeschooling, if they need things, get plugged into their local homeschooling groups through Facebook or whatever social media you can, or through their community centers, or however they do it, and get to know what they offer as services. We actually need to hire some people in the near future, and we are looking for homeschool minded people in order to provide those certain things, and that's our first choice.
Yes.
If we have to go outside, yes, we will. But for a lot of coding things and that we're needing, we need people who are this like-minded, and that's how we support each other.
Exactly.
And when this really gets tough in the government circles, and they want to press their thumb on the population, we have our networks.
Exactly.
And we don't have to go out in some redoubt and hide away and like some people would do. We have our networks.
Yeah, some people think that freedom is to isolate yourself and don't bother me. But the thing is, that doesn't last long, because you can't protect it, and it kind of sucks because you're by yourself. So what works best is to be with a community of like-minded people that really want to support each other, and they're vested in wanting to support each other.
Yeah,
that works.
We have a butcher. He's not the butcher, but he has a farm and sells the meat, and they're all grass fed and everything else like this. And he's right down across the in Oregon, and so he provides that. We go meet him, and he provides meat and stuff like this. And he's a local guy.
Yeah.
And local butchers, local farmers, and that sort of thing is where you're going to avoid some of the shortages that we have seen in the past 3 years.
Yeah. I love this point, because, like you say, Adriana, it's not about freedom. Is not about being the hermit in the woods. It's not that sort of Walden story, right? It's about building that network of like-minded people, that community, and facilitating a world where you can sort of be yourself and be the person you want to be. And that doesn't mean, like you say, getting away from the world, getting away from people, but it means sort of building some self-reliance and seceding, not in the technical term of like a state seceding from the union, but seceding from reliance on the government. Because let's face it, government has a monopoly on the use of force, right? That's what they do. They make laws, and then they enforce those laws at the point of a gun. That's the epitome of the use of force, right? And so we want to get away from that forceful environment and create pockets of freedom for ourselves and for our communities, and that's the way to do it, is through this networking.
And most people think, oh, okay, there's either freedom or there's slavery, and they're really, they don't get the they don't have the mindset of you don't have to be completely free to enjoy freedom, because freedom is a sliding scale. The more dependent you are on the work of others without compensation, the less free you are. Children develop from a complete dependence towards their independence as adults, and as the more responsibility that they can control. if an adult cannot control their life, they have an arrested development. And at some point, they're like little children dependent on others. And we have seen in this last 3 years, there's a lot of people who want to be dependent on the government. They enjoy it. Once they got the taste of being dependent.
Yes, I would say definitely until they're suffering or uncomfortable. Then they're like, what can I do? What can I do to change it, right? But it's too late.
And then what happens is the government says, like it's like the devil tempts us with riches and everything else like this. And most people say, no, I don't need that. I've got everything I need. But whenever you're saying, whatever the devil says, worship me or all, so you can feed your family. That's another story, and when the government says you either, undergo a medical treatment or you won't be able to have any sort of employment. And in certain cases, you can't get unemployment. And that was another thing that actually happened.
And they didn't give you insurance coverage if something happened with the medical treatment.
Yes.
So that kind of stinks. Like, something's wrong with that.
Yeah.
So the thing is we have to find other ways to support ourselves. I mean, yes, we have our careers, that I could go back into engineering. I mean, she can, go, continue with engineering. But the thing is we have a choice to make that freedom happen in our lives. And yes, it may not be the most, most financial gain. But the thing is where do we want to be later on? Do we want to be independent or still in the same dependency? And because, of course, I said dependency is not freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I think it's important to talk about here, too, is that with entrepreneurship, well, let me back up just a little bit. In the traditional school setting, failure is sort of demonized. And I think one thing that lots of people don't realize, especially if they've gone through the traditional school system, is that failure is a good thing. And that if you teach a child to deal with failure early on, they can be more successful later. And I think that's an essential lesson that's taught in lots of ways, but especially through this sort of entrepreneurship and sort of experimentation with entrepreneurship. Because let's face it, the statistics are pretty bad. Most businesses fail.
Yes.
Right? And so that's why it's so important to start early, right? And to let your child experiment and try and fail and try again and continue to hone that entrepreneurial skill set that they have. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of this overcoming this fear of failure?
Well, obviously, with the public school system, failure, like you said, is punished. And so, what's after that? What in the mind of the child? How do they handle and define failure in their life? And so it's something to be avoided at all costs, even to the point of not doing anything.
So because not taking risks.
Yes, and so that's really one of the best points. See, what we teach is that failure is part of innovation. In other words, if someone doesn't fail, there aren't any new ways of trying things. The reason why we're not still getting water, and with buckets from a river is there was some sort of failure. Failure in the supply, failure in the buckets, whatever. And eventually the tribes developed a system of bringing water to a village. Maybe it was drilling a well closer instead of at the river. But that's an innovation that is birthed in failure and in a need. And
we also say that that failure or mistakes are part of the learning process. You're not going to learn anything unless you make a mistake.
Right.
So,
I mean,
a very good lesson nonetheless, because there's things you can learn without making mistakes, but mistakes are really good because you learn really good lessons from those mistakes.
sure.
And that makes a child stronger and say, okay, well, let me continue experimenting. I won't be afraid of taking a risk. I don't want to be afraid of making mistakes because I want to move forward. I want to be able to come up with a really good idea, instead of giving up altogether.
Yeah,
Right.
just a simple example. I think I played sports growing up. One of the sports I played was basketball. A lot of children who are right-handed struggle to dribble with their left hand, and so they refuse to dribble with their left hand. But that's an essential skill if you want to be a good basketball player. So what do they have to do? They have to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail until they get it, right? And so that lesson, the child might learn it through sports, but they're not getting that in the school system, in the school setting. And that sort of relates to this entrepreneurial spirit too, dribbling with your left hand, trying the new business, trying the idea.
I got a really good one for that too. It's and video games, especially like fantasy video games or something like this. They have to fail a lot in order to combat the final boss. So that's something that you can relate to a child, and they go, "Oh, I get it now. I have to kill 5,000 were-rabbits before I can go and tackle this big, huge boss." Because every little thing that you do, incremental things, will build up your stats, will build up your skills, and
we always talk. We change our vocabulary
and our language, yes,
our language, so that it's more appealing to children. Because if you tell children you got to do your chores, you got to do these mundane things, they're not going to be excited.
That's right. We don't call them chores. Because the thing is where's the ROI? Where's the return on investment? Something that's mundane and has to do it all the time. But what am I building? Because we're answering, and this is in our book too, the what's in it for me question. And that's a key to motivation. It's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so when you answer the question, what's in it for me? And we change our language instead of saying, oh, these are chores we have to do. But what am I building? What skills are we building? Cleaning your room is actually a skill. Most parents just assume that children can just clean the room because it's simple for the parent to do. But in order to break down a task and to do specific things in a certain order, like pick up all the paper first or gather up all the dishes first, those type of things, that takes planning. And if you don't teach that, they're going to look at an insurmountable task and go, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So skills.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this discussion too, and I think it's related to something else I'd like to talk about, which is the idea of an allowance. You talked about chores as sort of mundane tasks, and there are some parents, of course, who utilize this concept of an allowance. But the problem I see, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, is that an allowance, it basically teaches the child that sometimes they get it without any tasks to complete, but even if they are completing tasks, that teaches them this sort of employment mindset. It's like a job,
Yes.
and I'm going to get my paycheck on Friday, and I'm going to get my paycheck every Friday when my parents get paid, and I'm entitled to that payment, and I'm not really creating anything of value except that I'm completing this sort of mundane task that I don't really care about. Can you talk about this concept of an allowance, what you think about it, and what parents might do instead?
Let me say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like how you brought up the employment, because that's what I was thinking when you were mentioning it. It's like, we don't want to train employees at home. We don't want to do that. So, and now I'm just going to say one thing and then I'll turn it over to you.
Go ahead.
But the other thing is, kids need money to play with, right? So if you make it sound like you have to do this to gain money, that's employment mindset all over again. So it's kind of like they need money to experiment with so that they know how to use money.
Right.
So I'll leave it like as that. Go
yes.
ahead.
And just getting play money may be fine for a very, very young children. But as the child progresses through the planes of development, using real money and having an allowance is a very good thing, because then they have to take their money and use it to buy something of theirs. And so the question is, there's lots of questions in that and a lot of lessons to be taught. It's like sometimes the child will ask, should I buy this? Well, there's a teaching moment there. The other thing that what we did, and not everybody can do this, but part of her monthly allowance was a silver bar, a 1 ounce silver bar. I mean, it's $20. I mean, so at a certain age, we gave her cash allowance and then a silver bar. And it's like, okay, she's not going to spend it, but I can show her on the silver charts where her investment is. And she has a tangible something that she has. And now she's got a few bars. I just put it that way. I'm a little jealous.
She has real money, not the fiat sort.
Now, not everybody can do that. I get it, but
she's in on it and she likes it because she knows that it's going to be worth more later.
Right. And so she talks about, cashing in, and when to sell and when to buy and things like this. And so she, at some point she was like looking at the prices and we're charting them together and things like that. And then she said, Dad, I want to buy a gold ounce. And I'm going, oh, okay. Well, we'll have to find out the best time to buy that. But she had enough money saved up because she got into this aspect of saving because silver, you just save it, right? And as far as this scenario, and so finally she went down and to the coin dealer and bought her own gold coin, and it was a precious moment. That the shop owner just really beamed that she was buying the coin, and but that because she saved for it.
Yeah. The thing is, we never said. Sorry,
go ahead.
We never said like you got to do all these things to get an allowance. We give her an allowance because she's a part of the family. Okay, but the thing is, because we're part of the family, we help each other out. We treat each other with respect. You do what you think are your responsibilities, which for her is her homeschool, learning the subjects that she was learning. So it's being a good person in their family was enough for her to earn her allowance.
Right.
As we're teaching her the skills of, working the dishwasher, for example, or working the laundry machine and stuff like this, because I know that I tell her, I want you to know how to do these things so that when you hire others to do this, you know that they're doing a good job. Because I don't expect her to be the one doing it. But if she were in a position where she had to do it, she can do it. But I always tell her, so you can supervise others and know that you're getting your money's worth for their service.
And we tell her, says, you're going to be the CEO of your company. And so your time is more valuable with your skill sets that you build. Your time is more valuable, building and furthering the business. So doing all these other things, delegate it.
Yeah.
Right. And so now she has an education of how to be a CEO, how to be an entrepreneur,
how to use resources.
How to use resources. Yes, you got the skill. It's like, there's a lot of CEOs that started from grinding away as a plumber or electrician, and now they have their own company.
Yeah.
And so you have to develop a new mindset when you go into the CEO realm of delegating.
I like your story about your daughter using her silver to buy gold, partly because my uncle is a coin dealer. He sells gold and silver, so I can relate to that to some degree. But also because I think there's a significant lesson there for the child, right? For your daughter, in delayed gratification, in capital accumulation, which are investment or can be investment vehicles later down the road, either for yourself or for your business. So there's a big lesson there that I think lots of people lose in sort of there's this what lots of people call a consumerist society, in a society where we've got rampant inflation. People don't have an incentive to save their dollars. But if you can find ways to save your dollars effectively, whether that's through silver or gold, and you can accumulate capital, though that can be more valuable to you down the road. So I like that story for lots of reasons.
Oh, and also, if she was in public school, she would not even been exposed to a lot of this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
Not at all.
that's your advantage. The
Mhm.
homeschooling promotes this type of learning.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I was thinking about basically, I think one of you, I can't remember which one, mentioned this when we were talking about the farmers market. This a lot of people grow or have chickens and harvest eggs.
Mhm.
I think that's another great opportunity. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law have children, and they have chickens, and I think that's a great opportunity to teach the child not only responsibility for yourself and for these animals, but to teach them how to contribute to the family, because they're providing food, they're taking care of these animals, but then sort of secondarily how to turn that process into a business, how to take the excess from that process and make money from it. So I think there are things that people can incorporate in their family life like that not only provides the child a sense of meaning and purpose within the family, but also gives them an opportunity to sort of foster this entrepreneurial skill set.
Sure.
Absolutely. There's actually, to extend a little bit, we've seen people that sell mushrooms, and mushrooms for some people has medicinal properties. So a lot of different things that help us, being able to be independent and taking care of ourselves.
Right.
Is
Not
really
the
great.
other mushroom.
No.
No, it's like,
No.
but there at the farmers market, there's mushroom dealers and stuff like this, and they lion's mane and other chanterelles and what's some other ones?
I forget.
Anyway,
a lot of rare ones that I'm kind of
they're incredibly fresh, and so we network with that guy, and so he, for a bottle of vanilla, we traded him mushrooms.
Yeah.
So and also the another lady with the pork rinds. I says I want to buy some pork rinds, and she goes, well, I tell you what, why don't you just give me a bottle of vanilla and I'll give you 3 bags. I go, okay, because the price is about the same.
Yeah.
So there's the bartering is right there, and even if you don't make a lot, it's an education for your homeschooling child.
It's a good stepping stone.
Yes.
It's a good introduction, stepping stone for expanding however you want later on.
And it doesn't have to be a future business or anything else like this, but those type of lessons are irreplaceable in the uncertain future that we're going to be facing. Because, I mean, if you listen to some of the doom and gloomers out there, and look at the things around us, you can get really panicky.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And things aren't nearly as doom and gloom, right? If you've built a strong family, built strong bonds with your community, built a network of local people who produce things, produce things of value, right, and can help each other. So that's a huge sort of shield against an uncertain world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've gone a little bit over an hour here, and I certainly don't want to bring this to a hard stop, but I want to make sure we get an opportunity to talk about anything else that we haven't talked about, and I'm certain we could talk about lots of things for many hours, but I want to make sure we at least get to some of the items that you want to that you think are important for people to understand about this entrepreneurial aspect of homeschooling? Is there anything in particular that we haven't discussed so far that you'd like to discuss?
Well, one thing I want to point out is, suppose you get that cottage business going, right? And so that you can become more financially independent. Eventually, the husband can quit their job and go full time. And there's ways to fund your business that are out there, that most the average person who went through regular school, they don't know how to fund a business. They don't know how to take a company and get funding, get investors, and the whole process of that. I encourage people to look into those things, because you don't necessarily have to pay for it all at once. Mm-hmm. You can, because people, when a person is in motion, people gravitate towards them. So do something.
Always do something.
Always do something, even if it's a failure, like we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Always do something.
Always work towards that goal.
Because the thing is you're going to ignite the imagination of someone else who's saying, I've got all this money, but I don't know what to do with it. And I want to, and I see these people and they have something that I want, like. I encourage, let's say that it's somebody that
maybe it's an old person.
An old person has no children.
And all this money.
and the thing is you don't know who you're going to meet. And you can meet those people come around. It's rare. But the thing is the investors, normal investors, are not rare. They're everywhere. Even if it's a small amount, $5,000 or something like this, to help a cottage business. Sometimes people just like, one time my daughter was drawing a picture, and this guy gave her like $30 for one of her pictures, and she only asked for 10 because he wanted to support her.
He wanted her to continue drawing.
So just out of the blue, and we thanked him profusely, but it was like, it was complete generosity.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought this up, because you say just get out there, just do something, just move forward. And I think that there's something attractive about that sort of person, right? They like, oh man, people notice this person. They're engaged, they're driven, they have a vision, they have these creative ideas. That's something I want to get behind, and I don't want to miss out on whatever they're doing. And that's what, you may not know it, but there are lots of people out there who notice those things, and like you say, are willing and able to invest in your project, in your vision. So I think that's a wonderful point. Anything else that you think is important to touch on before we close up here in just a little bit?
One last thing is see your family's business as your legacy. When you first start something from scratch, it is going to be hard. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you, and it's going to take a few years. But the thing is, once it takes off, that will be maintained within your family, generations to generations. You can develop a major company later,
right?
Down the road with your great grandkids, maybe the ones managing that. So it's really amazing if you think about it that way, that it's your legacy, what you're leaving behind. It's going to mean something for many years.
Start making plans, especially when you're homeschooling. Start making plans, intergenerational plans that go beyond the third and fourth generation. Build something like that. And structure your finances and your legacy and your whatever wills or trusts that you're going to create for long-term success. So that's where we will create more freedom in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and homeschool your children.
Yes.
For sure.
Well, that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we touched on that a little bit when we talked about your book, is that it's an investment, and it's
Yes.
an investment that pays dividends for generations, right? Because you're not just raising a child that's going to have a job and retire and have nothing to show for, but a little bit of money to pass down, right? They're going to be a person who is driven, who's creative, who provides value to the world, who may create a business that goes on for generations and has that sort of generational effect, so that not only you and your child have that freedom, but that generations to come, your children and your children's children and so on, can have the same freedom that you had. So fantastic point. Thanks for bringing that up, Adriana.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless there's anything else you really think we should chat about, I think we'll wrap it up here. And I want to give just a few moments here at the end to give you a chance to plug your book, Homeschool Life, and any other projects that you want to plug, or other resources that you'd like to point out.
Yep, our book, Kids Don't Need School, it's available in all formats, hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook as well. It's available on Amazon, and it's available in many other bookstores if you Google it. So,
right, and we had a professional reader for our audiobook, and it's really, he's a golden voiced individual, and so. Very easy to listen to, especially in drive time.
And we have our website. It's homeschoollife.us, and we are working towards having some courses there with a membership site. So that's coming next year, hopefully at the early next year.
And those courses will be for parents. After they've read our book, they get an in-depth analysis of what we're talking about, the points, point after point, in our classes, and also a chance to meet with other people in the same mindset. And
it's to help you program your mindset to do homeschooling the right way, the way that we say is going to benefit your family and your children.
Yep.
And X, what is your address for X?
Yes, for Twitter, Twitter handle, Twitter X.
Yeah.
It's Homeschool _ LLC. And if you have a question about any subject, like socialization or something, do a quick search, a Twitter search on @mytag, and whatever comments you want to, whatever question you have, and I've covered all of these things. So the socialization question, the motivation thing, you'll read them all. And so if you have any questions on that, that's a good place to start.
We're also on Facebook.
We are on Facebook.
What is our address on Facebook? I know you changed it recently.
I did change it.
That's why I can't say it.
But if you search for Homeschool Life on Facebook, you'll find us, and you'll see the cover of our book and stuff like that.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for coming along again. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I'll certainly link to the resources that you mentioned in the show notes, including the Facebook page. I will point out too that I don't think it's an overstatement by Jonathan there to say he's pretty much covered everything on X or Twitter. He's very active there, and I think you'll find that their Twitter or X profile is a great resource in addition to their book, of course, and the website. So I want to emphasize that point here again. So thanks again, Jonathan and Adriana, for tagging along. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you for having us, Alex. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. If you enjoyed the discussion, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us spread the message of freedom. By the time this episode is coming out, it'll be the new year. So happy New Year to everyone. And until next time, remember, you are the Forge of Freedom.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Forge of Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. For more information or to connect with Alex, you can go to forgeoffreedom.com or follow him on Twitter at Forge of Freedom. Until next time, remember, you are the Forge of Freedom.